So we got some bitchin' new parts for Chris's bike. First off, set of crash bars, because he's a new rider, and every new rider needs crash bars. And second, we got a cap and Keyset. I got a guy up near here who's got all kinds of bikes that he parts out. He's kind of like me, but older and no wife to keep him in check, and so he's got like 300 bikes, and sometimes he rebuilds them, sometimes he parts them out or whatever. So I go up to him for parts, and I told him that, hey man, like, we really want a cap and key set that match, you know, because it's Chris. I want to do right by him, give him a good matching cap and key set. And so for the life of us, we couldn't find any, man. He must have had like 30 of these, maybe 20 of these, because they fit Viragos and Maxims and other Seicas and such. And so we couldn't find a matching set, and so he just gave me his Yamaha master key, his skeleton key, which fit like probably 70% of the locks and caps that he had. So he just made sure that I knew that I had to make him a copy and bring him a copy of it. But yeah, this key will open pretty much the majority of XS, XJ, probably some XT. It'll open most of the 3-wire Yamaha ignitions. So that's pretty cool. And today we are going to be installing all this cool stuff on his bike. Crash bars are easy to install. It's just 2 bolts that go in and out. Banging! May not look like much, but Chris is definitely going to be grateful for it while he's learning to ride his new bike. So, normally I would have stripped it down and painted it, according to the color scheme of the bike, but I really think that we're just going to end up just murdering out this whole engine. I mean, it looks, it's a 30-year-old engine, so it looks as it looks. But we're probably just going to flat black the whole thing, so it doesn't really matter. Cool, we got both sides on. Now I'm going to take off this cap. Guys, just on a personal note, I know the economy's down everywhere and everything, and, nobody has any money, anymore or whatever, but we really can do better than this. If your gas cap looks like this, there really isn't any excuse not to find a new one. I mean, everybody knows what eBay is. Every single person knows what eBay is, And I just went and got this one from, my guy out here just because it was like $10 cheaper. But you can get one of these brand new for like 25 bucks shipped. And yeah, you might have different keys for your ignition, but come on, there's no reason to ride around on a bike that has a gas cap looking like that. And while we're on it, there's just no reason for that kind of malarkey. Really, there's not, I'm going to show you guys how to install a brand new ignition in a couple minutes here, and this is the next step in the process. But come on, let's do a little bit better. Alright? So this is easy. This thing just comes right off. You got one screw. See how much better this is? Bing. And that's going to look really cool once we have the tank painted. Alright, so to install the ignition, what I have to do is take apart the headlight, take off the headlight bucket, remove this little bracket. Let me show you guys. Remove this little bracket right here that the previous owner installed to mount his switch, and that's just some hardware right in there. And then wire it up. Fortunately, it's just a 3-wire, so I'm expecting that he's cut the female end off this clip. So what I'm just going to do is probably just hardwire them together, solder them together. So we lucked out. The original clip is here. That'll make things a little bit easier. And take off the bucket. Alright, so I took out these bolts. This whole thing came off. Gauges came off. I was able to kick this bracket out of here. Save the switch for the next time I'm feeling lazy. Now I'm going to replace the bolts because they are just like, I don't know, fucking drywall screws that was holding this whole thing together. Replace them with some good bolts from the bolt bucket and put it all back together. So all this shit is all exposed on here. You can see it's actually pretty easy to install one of these ignitions. On the underside of here are the female threads. And we just gotta grab, you know, a 10mm bolt or whatever. Slide this through here, kick this clutch cable out of the way. Slide this through here and bolt it up. It can get a little tricky, but with a little bit of dexterity, this thing bolts right up. Perfect. Got my bezel mounted up with some nice Allen heads. While I'm in here, I'm gonna reinstall these, and then we're gonna sort out the wiring. Good to go. Now, Mr. Previous Owner Man just had everything all hardwired together for the headlight. He just had constant power supplied to the low beam and the high beam. So I'm gonna sort that out. New headlight bulb. It's blue. Bitchin'. Alright, now we're going to figure out why the starter button doesn't work. First I'm going to check the solenoid. I'm just jumping the small leads on the solenoid. Positive to one and negative to the other. Alright, and so we know that the starter solenoid is innervating and it's making connection between the two big leads. So that's all we need to know there. Now I'm going to check the button. So I have the button all exposed here, and you can just see that there's two wires that go to one on the other side of the button. And I have my multimeter set to ohms, and when I press the button, there's just no contact. So this happens actually pretty regularly. These things get all corroded and junked up. So you can see in here, there's this little screw right here. It's right under this red wire. You just take that off and the button's going to come out, and we're going to clean it and try and make it work. Button's all lubed up and put back together. There you go. And Bob's your uncle. So now we're getting a lot of the mechanical stuff out of the way, so we can get on to the fun stuff, the cosmetic stuff. We were talking about how we can clean all this junk up, you know, the solenoid and the battery just sort of barfing out here. And then I discovered that little cavity right under there. And if we were to get a slightly smaller battery, such as this one, that's sealed, can you beat that? It's like it's made to sit in there. Look at that. Boom. So that battery's junk, but it's a good placeholder just to see how big that cavity is. So we're going to be doing that, getting a new battery, and a bunch more fun stuff coming up. So stay tuned for further episodes.